All right, we were doing Caveman. This is the last week. We're going to kind of wrap it up. And we were saying this, life is so easy that even a caveman can do it. And we were basically using caveman as an analogy for getting back to the basics of life. We think of a caveman, we think of someone who's very, very simple. They've got the basics. We need to have the basics. And when I think of the basics, I think about how crazy my life feels during the week, and you can probably relate to this, that one of the things I love to do is I love to stick on the old Andy Griffith show, because I feel like it reminds me so much of the opposite of the way that my life is. And I just like to see Andy and Barney and Opie and Aunt Bee sitting there on the front porch of Andy's house, and they're all sitting there after church on Sunday, they're relaxing, and Barney will be saying something like, "Yep, I think I'm going to go over to Walker's and get a bottle of pop, go over to Thelma Lou's, watch some TV, then maybe take a nap." "Yeah, that's what I'll do. Go to Walker's for a bottle of pop, Thelma Lou's, TV, take a nap." And I just think, man, I wish life was like that sometimes. Wish I could just do that. It's just relaxing. Tell you what, life is not like that at all. It's not slow. It's fast. It's crazy. And what we've been saying is, in order to navigate life well, we have to have some basics in place in our life. And I want to just recap a little bit. And this is so elementary, what we've been talking about. But I want to tell you that I meet a lot of people, and the issues that they face, and the struggles that they have, could be cured so much easier than they realize if they really would put the basics in their life. And the first thing that we talked about is we talked about how the caveman, the first thing that he's all about is finding food. That's his number one priority. In the same way, our number one priority is putting God number one in our life. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is this scripture right here, Matthew 6:33, is very simple, but it is right on the money, and I have used it so many times to get my life in check. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Put God number one. Put Him above everything else. You look at any sports team, you look at any business, you look at any operation, and if it has problems, what do? You look at the top. You look at the leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. You look at the number one thing and see what's in order. I've known organizations where I've seen the attitude of the employees or the people that were involved in that, and I thought, man, this is not working well. The attitude is not the way that it needs to be. Something is not happening right. And then you meet the leader of that organization and you say, oh, I see why. Because the attitude of them is the same as the attitude of the leader. It goes right to the top. So in your life, you need to look at it and say, man, what is at the very top of my life? If God is not there, and He's not number one, then no wonder there's problems in there. God has got to be number one. The second basic that a caveman gets to is after he finds his food, he's got to find his shelter. He's got to find a place to hang his hat and get out of the elements. And for us, we're using that as an analogy for not just the roof that's over our heads, but for the people that are closest to us. And that is our family. Joshua 24:15 says this, "But as for me and my household," and I'm going to kind of extrapolate on that a little bit. "As for me and my family, those who are nearest to me, those who I am most relationally responsible to, we will serve the Lord." One of the things about the family is it is the kingpin. It is the center point of society, if you look at it. Put yourself in the enemy's shoes for a second, if you can. If you wanted to destroy a society, I don't think I'd go right to the church and try to destroy that first and foremost. We might think that would be what he would try to do. But actually, I would say I would go right to the family unit, and I'd start with the men, with the fathers, and I'd start working on them. And I'd start to break up the family and mess it up, and I'd start messing with children and parent relationships, and I would try to tear that apart, because it is the kingpin of the way everything works. The family is the place where discipleship is meant to happen, where people are supposed to be trained so that they can have and understand what God is all about and go on and live a productive, Christ-following, Christ-centered life. Believe it or not, the church is actually in a tier outside of that. It starts right with the family. So if you're the enemy, man, I would go right after the kingpin, the center. Family is huge. It is important. That's a basic you've got to have. So we talked about food, shelter, And then last week we talked about the caveman's prime invention, his legacy that he's known for. And what would that be? That's that stone, that wheel that he's known for. He uses it for work, he uses it for play, he uses it to get stuff done, and it represents who he is, it represents his purpose. And for us, we're talking about how our purpose, why we're here on the planet, what are we supposed to be all about? When we talk about purpose, it answers the questions of why am I here, and what am I supposed to be doing? Jeremiah 29:11 says this, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Folks, you have a great purpose. It's not just about going through the routine of your life and just getting done. It's not just about making money and eating and sleeping, and that's not it. You have a purpose that is great and it is from God. We talked about some of those things. You know, I think about in the ancient days, whenever these great big ships with tall sails were sailing across the ocean, and they didn't have GPS system. And what they would do to navigate is they would navigate by the stars. And they always knew if they could find the North Star, Polaris, then that could help them, it could guide them home. You've got to have a direction, you've got to have a purpose. That can only come from God. So, God first. Your family, huge priority, and understand your purpose in God. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about today is something a little bit different. And that is something that we definitely think about when we think about Caveman, is we think about fire. Fire is a basic thing for the caveman. And what we're going to use as an analogy for fire, for us, is in your life, when we think of fire, we think of hot. Your life, your relationship with God, needs to be hot. It needs to be, use the term, on fire. And there's a scripture in Revelations that talks about, I would rather not be lukewarm, rather be cold or hot. Because if you're not, God's saying, I'd just rather just spit you out of my mouth. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a loogie in the mouth of God. I want to be hot. I don't want to be cold. And that is something that every Christ follower needs, is you need to be hot. Think of sports. When somebody is really on, like if a basketball player is just sinking shot after shot after shot, or a football player is on target, stats are good, you say, man, that guy really caught fire. He's really got it going on. It is working well. It is hot. That's the way you got to be in your life. Now, here in a few weeks, we're going to be having a bonfire over at the Lundstrom's house. It's something we do every year. We cook some hot dogs and do a hayride, and it's just a bunch of fun. Great thing to just do as a church family and invite friends to. It's a blast. And I remember last year at the bonfire, we had it going, and it was pretty big. It was going pretty well, and I was really getting hungry for the Oscar Mayers. And so I put them on the stick, probably 3 of them at the time. And I got up to that fire to put the hot dogs on the fire, and I sat there for like 1 minute, and I thought, I gotta back away from this thing. It is hot. You've been close to a fire like that, you can almost feel it cooking your face. You want to back away, and then you try to figure out how to extend the stick so you can have the hot dog way out there, so you don't have to stand close to the fire. You try to do it behind your back, because it's so unbearable how hot that stuff is. One of the things we know about hot, and one of the things you'll learn in physics, is heat equals energy. Heat equals fuel. Car engine, it's hot. Hotter balloon, why does the thing rise up? Well, it's because they heat up the air molecules inside the hotter balloon, and they're hot. They're moving faster than the air molecules outside the hotter balloon that causes it to rise. Heat is energy. Heat is fuel. And so what we're going to say is, we're going to say, just as fire is the caveman's basic, for us, as a Christ follower, we need to be hot as well. We need to have fire. And what does that do? It gives us fuel so that you can get through your life and navigate it exactly the way that you need to.